Am I the jerk for not paying my friend full price? I, a 33-year-old female, have worked with M, a 41-year-old female, for a little over 3 years, and decided to start a business on the side. She sells body cream, lotions, washes, and similar products. Since M and I have grown somewhat close over the last 3 years, I wanted to support her and buy a few items. They were a bit overpriced in my opinion, but I still bought them since she was just getting started. It turns out the products are amazing, and I really love them. A few months passed and I was running low. I asked her about purchasing some more, to which she said she didn't have any in stock and would have to wait until her supplies came in. I asked for an estimate on time so I would know when to ask again. She didn't have one. A few weeks passed and I asked again. It was the same story. She didn't have any due to supplier issues. At that point, I stopped asking. A few months passed since then. Recently, the conversation came up in passing, and she said she had the product now, and if I still wanted some, I could get it. I said sure. Here is where the issue begins. She told me she had the product but no containers. She wanted me to clean my containers, sanitize them, remove the labels, and then bring them to her to refill. I was a little taken aback since I was under the impression I would be getting the same service I got back when I first purchased, not having to do work and pay for the product. I clarified with her that she wanted me to do all this, and she said yes, and then we switched topics. I went home and did just as she asked. I cleaned, sanitized, and removed labels. I brought them back to her and she filled the jars. She asked about payment, and I sent it to her via Cash App, but I didn't send her the full payment since she had me doing most of the work. The price was $50, and I paid her $45. It was not a huge difference I took off. She texted me immediately and asked for the rest of the money. I reminded her of the work she wanted me to do beforehand and how it's not fair to charge full price when she's not giving full service. She started calling me over and over, yelling at me and telling me to send her the rest of the money. I told her I would not be doing that because even at Starbucks, if you bring your own cup, they take money off your order. She wasn't having it and continued to yell at me, demanding I send her the rest of the money. I declined and hung up. I have since ignored her calls and texts, which are not very nice, and work life has been awkward. She goes out of her way to avoid me and is telling people at work how I cheated her out of her hard-earned money and how I'm an asshole. So, am I the asshole for not paying? If you wanted a discount for doing the work, you should have asked beforehand. You don't take the product and then pay less and explain why. It doesn't work like that. You're paying for the lotion, not the containers, and 33% is a huge amount to underpay. Is $5 worth arguing over and possibly straining a friendship? Am I the jerk for excluding my gay nephew from my social events when he says attending the events is a need for him, not a want? My brother has 2 young adult children, Maisie, who is 19 years old, and Cassidy, who is 18 years old. I am a gay man in my 50s. Both Maisie and Cassidy are very young for their ages. They live their lives entirely online, and neither of them have any real-life friends. They are both very into fandoms around boy bands. They both have some interest in fashion, which they follow on social media. Roughly 2 years ago, Cassidy announced identifying as male. As part of this, Cassidy changed his fashion somewhat to be a kind of goth, glam, and androgynous look. Cassidy has long hair and wears a great deal of makeup, which did not change after the announcement, but he began adding a mustache and small goatee, which were applied with makeup. I am part of a very tight-knit group of friends in this city who are all gay men. Cassidy never showed much interest in my social life before, but after his announcement, he began asking to attend my social events. I told Cassidy that once he turned 18, he could come. All of my friends are in their 40s and 50s, and most of them are married with children. We drink wine and talk about our lives, and it's usually very domestic, but it can get raunchy. The first uncomfortable part was that anytime there was any reference to sex, Cassidy would loudly huff and sigh, and at one point, rush out of the room. I'm presuming Cassidy is not comfortable with sex, but I was not going to babysit him as he is an adult. Once Cassidy had a glass or two of wine, he loosened up more, but it got a lot worse. The word FT started flowing out of Cassidy's mouth, non-stop. Cassidy repeatedly talked about how every aspect of himself proved how he was such a FT and had always been one. Cassidy brought up his love of fashion and boy bands as examples of this. This caused a stunned, uncomfortable silence in the room. Each and every one of us in that room besides Cassidy has been called that word before by someone who was in the midst of doing terrible things to us or threatening us. Cassidy has never been in a position to be called that in any context. As Cassidy had more wine, he kept changing the subject back to his boy bands. We are grown-ups with interesting lives, and none of us are interested in boy bands. Anytime the conversation strayed from fashion or boy bands, Cassidy hijacked it back as he got more drunk. People started leaving, and I was furious. Because Cassidy is apparently terrified of confrontation, I told my brother that Cassidy will not be welcome back to any of my events until he grows up more. Apparently, Cassidy had a meltdown and said that he needed to attend these events to be part of his community, and it was a need for him, not a want. My brother is acting like I'm responsible for Cassidy's mental health. Am I the asshole? I think you are not in the wrong here. Cassie's behavior was out of line, constantly derailing conversations and using offensive language that carries painful memories for everyone in the room. Your gatherings are for mature adults to unwind and connect, not for playing babysitter to someone who can't handle grown-up conversations. Maybe encourage her to find people she relates to more and who share her interests. Am I the jerk for bringing a personal visitor to the nursing home where I work to compete in a game of chess with one of the residents? I work at an assisted living facility, a nursing home for people who are very elderly and cannot care for themselves. One of the residents in the wing I work at is Josh, a 97-year-old man who has pretty bad cognitive decay. Most of the time, he doesn't remember who I am, who he is, where he is, or what's going on. However, he's a former national chess champion, something I only know about because the personal effects in his room include some of his trophies and other awards. We've got a few sets in the common areas, and if you can wake him up long enough to play, he does still remember how, and he's thrashed most of the staff at one point or another over the board. I have a guy I know who is kind of friend of a friend. Let's call him Bob, and he's the top player at some local chess association. He is a long way down from a professional player, but is usually the strongest player in the room. I had mentioned that one of the residents I care for is this former champion, and he asked to come by to visit since Bob is a huge chess enthusiast and wanted to meet a national champion, no matter what kind of state he was in. We allow visitors, so I signed him in, and by good luck, it was on one of Josh's better days. They went into one of the common rooms and played chess for 6 hours straight. I wasn't able to stick around to watch most of it, but I talked with Bob afterward. Bob said that while Josh is clearly not the player he was when he won the national championships anymore, he is still a mean old buzzard over the board and won a bit over 2/3 of their games. Josh missed dinner, and I had to get into the canteen after hours and make him some scrambled eggs and toast just so he'd have something to eat. I was with him for the dinner, and it was the most animated I'd seen him in ever. He was actually talking about his day and definitely remembered what was going on and how this young punk came to challenge him and he had to show the kid how it's done. All in all, I thought I did a good thing, brightening up a very old, very sick man's day. However, pretty much all of my coworkers have the opposite take, believing that disrupting his schedule and agitating him like that was a bad thing to do, especially since it caused him to miss his regular dinner. I'm pretty new at this job, so I do value their opinions, but I don't think what I did was wrong. Am I the asshole here, especially if I do it again? You are not the jerk. You helped him feel alive again, giving him a sense of purpose. Nursing homes should be doing this for residents every day. Keep bringing your creativity and humanity to these wonderful humans. They truly deserve it. What you did was a wonderful thing, going above and beyond to make his day special. Am I the jerk for speaking to my stepmom like she's dumb? My stepmother has been in my life since I was 4 years old, and my siblings were 2 years old and 1 year old. Our parents are divorced. Our mother is not in our lives anymore, and she was a very inconsistent presence even when she was around. I am 17 years old now for context. I generally get along okay with my stepmother, but this past year has been particularly bad. It started when my sister, who is 14 years old, asked our father about our mother. It was because of something that came up in school, but my stepmother got very jealous when the question was asked. Ever since that day, she has randomly made disparaging comments about our mother around us or directly to us. She has made it a point to say our mother did not want us. She said our mother chose mental illness over us and drugs over us. We never knew about the drug issue, and our father was very angry at her for telling us the way she did. She also made a comment to my brother another time when he was doing a project on DNA. She said that DNA is not so great when DNA does not want you. We all pulled away from her because of this, and her comments got worse over time. She was getting irate about the topic of our mother abandoning us. I told her she was not helping close the distance between us with her anger and comments. She told me we were treating her like trash for no reason and disrespecting her by bringing up the mother who abandoned us when she is right there. She told me she could not understand us treating her the way we have been for the last year when she is the one who raised us, not our biological mother. I told her that her comments about our biological mother were exactly why we pulled back. I said we know our mother left us. We know she chose to leave. We know she is not a good mother, but she is still our mother. She still made us. We still had a bond with her. We still have some love and mixed emotions about her. I told her nobody wants to be reminded of that day after day or have it thrown in their face. I told her she is the adult. We are the children. She has been throwing a year-long tantrum and dividing us with her comments. I told her she would not like it if we started making comments about her father, who was not a great guy, and if we told her that her father never loved her and never wanted her. So why would we want to hear that about our mother? I told her if she does not want us to grow apart, then she needs to apologize and stop making those comments. I reiterated that a couple of times, explaining that we pulled back because of the comments, not because we were trying to disrespect her. By the end of the conversation, she told me I had spoken to her like she was dumb, and that I did not need to keep making the same point over again. She told me it made her feel disrespected, and she left the room. Ever since, there has been new tension. Am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here. Your points were well reasoned, but she chose to ignore the substance of what you were telling her, which got to the very root of the problem. Instead, she focused on her misinterpretation of the style in which you delivered the truth, and then tried to change the topic to you. Sadly, people often reject anything that requires them to give up their ingrained views, or admit they were wrong. Am I the jerk for not being ready to watch my partner's child on my own after 6 months together? The title definitely requires some context, so here goes. I am 25 years old and have been dating my girlfriend, who is 24 years old, for officially 6 months now. We have been off and on for close to 9 months, but those first 3 months were a bit weird, and honestly worthy of a whole separate conversation, so I really do not count until we became completely exclusive 6 months ago. She has a 3-year-old daughter, and she is wonderful in every single way. She is a bit of a handful and fiercely independent, but still an incredible little human that I am growing to love. The father is still in the picture, but they are obviously separated and they trade off schedules with her. Getting into this relationship as a young man with no children has definitely been intimidating and not without challenges. I am not naive and understand what the big picture holds should we stay together, and I truly hope we can. I know that there is a certain level of responsibility expected of me and what it means to be a constant in a young child's life. I knew all of this going into it. It is a unique challenge for a young woman to have to raise a daughter virtually on her own, and I know that. I am currently building my own freelance videography and photography business. While it is beginning to go very well for me, I am still in a position where I have to work a bartending job to pay the bills and save money before I can comfortably take the leap and go full-time. This results in a pretty chaotic schedule for me where I am working quite a bit, and my days off from bartending are invaluable to me in building my business. My girlfriend is a person who struggles with being alone, and coupling that with the struggles of having a daughter can make things extra challenging, as I cannot always make myself available to her as much as she would like. Recently, she had a work commitment on a Saturday where she needed someone to watch her daughter, and her friends heavily implied that I should do so. I needed the day to do some necessary work for my business and was basically booked for the day. I also let her know that watching her at this stage in the relationship was a bit much for me, given I have never even babysat any child or anything like that. I even offered to take her to the zoo one-on-one for a couple of hours, one day, as that seems like a better way to ease into things. However, her friends seem to think I am not stepping up enough, and have made her begin to second-guess if I am as well. I feel as though I have a decent argument here, but to be honest, I am beginning to second-guess everything myself now. Am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here. It's pretty surprising that she expects you to watch her child so early in the relationship. Her friends need to butt out and respect your comfort level with interacting with her daughter. Offering to take her to the zoo one-on-one was a very reasonable offer. Am I the jerk for implying my sibling is responsible for their ex's decisions? This is a conflict between me, a 25-year-old female, and my brother, a 30-year-old male. My brother has a 7-year-old daughter with his ex-wife, a 30-year-old female. He is currently engaged to his partner, a 28-year-old female, and they have been together for 2 years. My brother and his ex are high school sweethearts who got married right after graduation and had my niece a few years later. My brother always knew his ex had the mindset that a blended family is not a real family. Step-family is not real family, and half-siblings are not real siblings. She had a blended family and did not consider them her family, only her biological family. She was always very anti-step half in general. When they were newly married, they were asked to leave my aunt and uncle's house because my uncle is technically my cousin's adoptive father, formerly step, and my brother's ex was expressing her anti-step half views in their house. His ex always talked about how her children would know that family is blood, family is real mom, real dad, and real siblings, and would never have a family relationship with any steps. My brother knew this before they had my niece. He still had my niece with her, and when they broke up when my niece was 2, he never acknowledged the fact it was going to be difficult for him to partner up again and have a decent household when my niece was being raised with those views. This is where his partner, whom he calls his fiancée, comes in. They have been dating for 2 years, and my niece does not acknowledge her as dad's girlfriend and is generally hostile to her. It is not at an adult level, but she says a lot of the things her mom has taught her. When my brother proposed, his girlfriend said she could not say yes at that moment and asked for couples counseling. She loves my brother but has her doubts about the future due to my niece's views and reluctance to accept her. She does not want to make things worse and does not want a household where the child is not comfortable with her. Additionally, she wants children, and knowing how my niece feels is a concern for her. My brother is starting to worry he will lose her now. He was talking to me about it, and I told him he should have considered this when he divorced because he knew how his ex spoke to their daughter and the views she was teaching her. He told me that it is not his fault and how dare I blame him for his ex's decisions. I said I am not blaming him for her decisions. I am blaming him for not taking those into consideration and not counteracting them right away. I told him that he started addressing it when his ex had already gotten several years of a head start on him and only started when it was clear my niece was refusing to give his girlfriend a chance, which is something his girlfriend was clearly noting. He told me I am still blaming him for his ex's decisions and told me to fuck off. Am I the asshole? His ex always talked about how her kids would know that family is blood and would never have a family relationship with any step-relatives. It was his decision to have a child with someone with those views, knowing they would raise the child that way. He knew that before he conceived a child with her. His failure to think through the consequences isn't on you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.